All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the County of Los Angeles Citizen Redistricting Commission special public meeting. Today is November 3rd, 2021, and the time is 7 p.m. We will now call the special meeting to order. As a reminder to the public, this public meeting is being recorded and live streamed to youtube.com/LA County Redistricting. The link to the recording will also be posted and accessible through the Los Angeles County Redistricting website. If at any time any members of the public has any technical difficulties, please put into the Q&A and we can work towards fixing the issue. I will now take the roll. As a reminder, commissioner names will be called in a rotating alphabetical order by last name. Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Priscilla Orpanela Segura. Commissioner Hyla Soto.
Present.
Commissioner Saida Soto.
Present.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Present.
Commissioner John Bento. Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Present.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Present.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Present.
Commissioner Mary Kenny.
Present.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Present.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Present.
Commissioner Apollonia Morales.
Present.
Commissioner Nelson Obrega.
Present.
And Commissioner Priscilla Orpanela Segura.
Here.
Thank you. I will now turn the agenda over to Co-Chair Williams.
Thank you, Ty. For approval of the agenda, there are no changes to the agenda tonight, so the agenda is approved. Since this is a special meeting, there will be no public comments on items not on the agenda. The public can later make oral comments on other agenda items, and the public can also submit written comments on agenda items at our website at publiccomment.redistricting.lacounty.gov. We also want to note that we have started to receive written comments on the 4 map options. They will be posted. We will be posting that input ahead of the first public meeting if received by this Saturday, November 6, 2021 at noon. Okay, Ty, would you go through the process for making public comments on an agenda item, please?
Of course. So if any members of the public are interested in making a live public comment, please submit in the Q&A your name, your affiliated organization, if any, and the agenda item you would like to make a public comment on. When you are called to make your public comment, you will be prompted, or you will be able to unmute your mic. If you're comfortable, you may share your video as well. If you are participating via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. And once called upon, press *6 to unmute and speak. Each person will have 1 opportunity to speak for 1 minute per discussion or agenda item. When you begin making your comment, please share your name and any affiliation you may have. Again, the Q&A is for members of the public to sign up to make a live public comment. If you have additional comments you would like to make, including public comments for specific draft maps, they can be submitted to the public comment form. You can find the link in the chat or on the CRC website. And submitting to the public comment form, ensure your written comments are accurately recorded.
Usually the second.
Okay, now we're at item 4 on the agenda. They should be consent rather than content items. Sorry for that typo. And we have 4 meetings minutes to review, and those are the minutes, I'm sorry, 3 to review: October 26th, 27th, and 28th, the meetings we had last week. I'll note that for the draft October 28th minutes, there was it said Wednesday and it should have been Thursday, October 28th. So first, let me ask whether there's any changes, corrections, or whatever on the October 26th draft minutes. Okay, are there any changes, corrections, additions to the October 27th draft minutes?
Okay, we have two hands, Commissioner Stetcher, then Commissioner Holtzman.
I would note that on page 4, one of the bullets is a comment about MALDEF, but it's not, in fact, a priority or a consideration that we discussed, and I think it should be deleted.
Can you, I don't know if we, Gayla, do we have that readily available?
I will look it up while Commissioner Holtzman.
And I was going to offer to open the minutes so everybody could look at that page.
Okay, yeah, if you can get that ready, but Commissioner Holtzman? Go
Hi. My comments are on that page too. I have it up on my screen. Maybe you'd like me to wait until it's up on everybody's screen?
Sure. Gayla, you're muted.
I'll bring it up so I can make any changes and just type it and everybody can see it at the same time. So just give me 1 second. I was in the process when I had to switch over. Is this the page? Should we start with Brian's?
Yes,
Was this the bullet you felt should be removed?
yes. Although no, it doesn't really. Because this was not commissioners' priorities or considerations. It wasn't, it was something that happened later on when we started talking about individual maps.
Actually, a commissioner had made this statement. I typed them in as commissioners made this statement. So the commissioners who felt this way can all, if you all want me to delete it, I'm happy to. But it was during this period because I had it all up on the screen. I just didn't.
But maybe the statement is incomplete, or I don't know what it captures in terms of what our priorities or considerations were.
And maybe we take off the word reviewed. Just in general, there was an interest in that. But let me mark this as an area of interest.
Oh, all right. Even if it is looking more carefully at MALDEF and people's block maps, that would be consistent with the rest of the things in the list.
Because the specific comment was that they were from community-based organizations, which is why they felt they should be.
Okay, that clarifies it if you could add that to it somehow. Review maps from, because they're, yeah, community-based organizations, fine.
I do recall some discussion along those lines.
I see Commissioner Soto's hand was up. I think Commissioner Soto, you may have been the one who raised this point.
No,
Sorry,
I was
Soto.
raising it to see if this was perhaps focused on the need to incorporate these, to bring these maps into the software.
Okay.
Just because we, there was a lot of comment from
There was that discussion as
commissioners
well,
about it.
for sure.
Mhm.
I know I have a typo. Does that help, Commissioner Soto? Is that a Soto?
Yes, but I'm not saying that that's exactly what that was, but noting that that in order to review them more carefully, we needed these to be brought into the SRE software, which is maybe why it said reviewed or review.
Okay, Commissioner Holtzman, I think you had a question on the same page.
I have a couple of revisions I'd like to suggest for the same page. First, under that list of commissioners' priorities or considerations, I'd like to add something that I said that I don't see reflected there, and that is important to separate central core working class area of the San Fernando Valley from the surrounding higher class areas considered part of the valley. I could read that again slower if you want to type it in. Oh, I see you typing it. Okay, and no.
I'll scroll out.
Important to separate, important, if you would, the first word, important. To separate central core working class area of the San Fernando Valley from the surrounding higher class areas considered part of the valley. All right. So, and my next suggestion, please, is just in the first sentence under the table, it says like express concerns with the use of RDUs, blah, blah, blah. I would I suggest request deleting the rest of the sentence after RDUs, because I'm not really sure that they fit what's said there. And I wasn't really talking specifically about those things. Okay, and my but I just wanted to point out that and the thing that I mentioned in the next sentence, that the commission might be in violation of law. It's actually the county board of supervisors, but I didn't say that, so I don't think we should make that change, a change there. And the fourth and last thing on this page I have is that it says that Commissioner Mary Kenny added that the RDUs are the basis for county departments to deliver services to residents. So it is a useful building block, et cetera. In my experience, I think when I was on a conference with some county staff, they were in the middle of developing the RDUs. And I don't really think they necessarily pre-existed our process here. So I'm not sure that the RDUs themselves are the basis for county departments to deliver services to residents. And I just wanted to give Commissioner Kenny a chance to change this or address that point.
Well, the minutes as stated correctly represent my understanding.
Also, you had a panel and Public Works indicated they rely on the RDUs, as does regional planning and some other departments. My understanding is that the one department that does not use RDUs is the Department of Public Social Services. But it is
but the RDUs were freshly developed for this process, as I recall.
No, they were not. They were
The ones
developed.
that we're using. So why weren't they made available in the draft version of the software if they were always existent?
Because ESRI was quickly importing the census data so people could start to be trained on it. But the intention was always to use the RDUs once they had released the official software.
But the
And
RDUs then
adjusted
develop.
for the incarcerated populations.
But the RDUs define larger areas. I don't think the departments list their service areas by RDU, do they?
That was what the panelists had indicated. And frankly, Co-Chair Maeda, is this pertinent to the minutes? We're just trying to capture what was discussed in the minutes. This may be another topic to be debated at a later time.
No, I forget it. Thanks. All right, those are my comments.
Okay. Any other changes, comments on the, this is the 27th, I believe, October 27th minutes. How about the October 28th minutes?
Commissioner Stetcher, then Commissioner Kenny.
Yes, in the description or the discussion of map 23, the MALDEF map, in the text, it refers to map 18 and it should refer to map 23.
Okay, so 1 second. Let me make sure I share this. We have, what page is it on?
I'm sorry, I didn't write a page number, but as you, there are discussions of each of the 5 maps we considered and voted upon. And there's
It's
a
on
heading.
page 10.
Thank you. So map 23, the first sentence, a motion was made, seconded to adopt
you.
map 23.
You're right. Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kenny, then Commissioner Holtzman.
Yes, on page 9, the motion, make sure I'm unmuted. The motion on map 18, I voted no. Map 18,
I have you as a no vote.
I'm sorry, map 12.
Change is made. Commissioner Holtzman?
Commissioner Holtzman.
Okay, on that page, there's a typo where it says map 12 prepared by the People's Block. There should not be a K at the end of block. There you go.
Anything else?
And I was just thinking that where it references the resolution that we passed on page 12 about authorizing hybrid meetings, et cetera, that the resolution should be included in the minutes rather than a separate item on the notice of hearing part of our website, since the meeting already happened. Probably should be moved to the minutes.
That's easy to attach as a PDF to the final approved minutes. Holly, do you want to weigh in as legal counsel on that?
I mean, we can certainly add it as an exhibit to the minutes. That makes sense.
Okay.
Any other comments, changes, corrections to the October 28th minutes? Okay. I would like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the meetings of October 26th, 27th, and 28th as revised or amended. If you feel the need to abstain from one or more of those, then you can indicate that in the course of the vote. Co-Chair Williams? You're muted.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Commissioner Mendoza seconds. Commissioner Kenny's hand is down. Is there any further discussion? Ty, please call roll.
Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. I will now take roll call. Commissioner Hyla Soto?
Yes.
Commissioner Saida Soto?
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher?
Aye.
Commissioner John Bento? Commissioner Bento? Co-Chair Carolyn Williams?
Abstain on October 26th and I on the 27th and 28th.
Commissioner Dorina Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Jean Franklin?
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Mary Kenny?
Yes.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda?
Aye.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Apollonio Morales?
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon?
Yes, on all 3.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura?
Abstain on October 28th and yes on the 26th and 27th.
And Commissioner John Bento, are you here? Motion passes.
Thank you. What is next on the agenda, Gayla? So the main item on the agenda today is 5A, discussion and possible approval of the format and the process for how we're going to evaluate maps, for structuring the upcoming public hearings, receiving public testimony, et cetera. I believe we have a staff report on this.
It's not so much a staff report as an outline of some of the issues for you to consider.
Great.
And I can go through the topics, I guess, take points of clarification, then we might take public comment.
Right.
And then go into discussion, what you really want to do. Does that work for you, both co-chairs?
Yes.
Okay. So on the website and for the upcoming public hearing are 4 maps labeled as option A, B, C, and D. Each one of them also have an ESRI layer view so that upcoming revisions can be done using the ESRI software. We have already, for example, received 3 additional maps. One of the maps is a modification of option A1 using the ESRI software layer. So it is working well. Some of the items that you all sort of need to be aware of is for public hearings. We have to post the agenda with the maps for you to discuss 7 days prior. And so this makes it a little bit complicated. We did post the 4 maps last Friday, so it's more than 7 days ahead of your first public hearing this Sunday, November 7th at 1 o'clock, which will be virtual. What we've spent time doing is really coming up with the calendar and what kinds of postings have to happen. So we have the ability, after we have our public hearing, and at your public hearing, for you to give suggestions for modifications for maps. So for example, let's say the public makes comment that they want certain cities either not split or certain cities sort of moved into another area. On Sunday, November 7th, you could give direction to ArcBridge to make those modifications. They would have to complete them for us on Tuesday so that we could post them by Wednesday morning so that we would have them posted 7 days in advance of the next public hearing. November 10th, we actually decided to call it a regular meeting. It is a regular meeting. You could discuss maps more then, and if for some reason, upon further analysis and consideration, you might want some additional map modifications, or maybe submitted maps elevated as options, we could do an addendum and add those to our posting. On Wednesday, November 17th, that is a public hearing. That would be the second one. And we would have to post any modifications you want coming out of that meeting by November 24th. That is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. That would give the public ample time to review before public hearing number 3 on Wednesday, December 1st at 7 o'clock. We have a similar challenge there in that on December, actually prior to December 1st, I mean, what we'll probably have to do is roll over the maps from the public hearing for Tuesday, December 7th. We are sort of speculating that it's possible that you may narrow the number of maps you really want to focus on December 7th. There may be some maps you want to eliminate along the way. But the complication given our tight timeline is a 7-day posting of the maps, if you follow what I'm saying. A couple other things you should think about is you can't, for the COI public hearings, because they were virtual, the way the regulations were written, we could not cap the length of the meetings. As long as the public was there, you were supposed to continue your meeting until you received all public comment. According to Holly's current interpretation, you could say, we'll take public comment up for 3 hours. We will close it out at 10 o'clock at night. You can set a time limit. The other thing for you to think about is if you want to consider going hybrid And I was thinking for the December meetings, the last two, that would be a patriotic hall. Commissioners could attend in person or virtually. It would allow me to book patriotic hall for those dates. If when we get closer to that, there's some health concern, we can always cancel. The other thing for you to consider is if you want to invite the 4 map makers to present the maps that you're thinking about at the public hearing on Sunday. And we'd need to reach out to them pretty expeditiously to invite them. Here are some other thoughts. We think, if you recall at our last meeting, we had over 39 public comments. For the whole evening, we had 40. You're giving them 1 minute. We're going to suggest that you only have public comments now by audio going forward. It does take time for Ty to elevate them, make them a panelist, make their video available. A lot of members of the public, are there saying, can you see me? Can you hear me? So we also think it might avoid any problems when you become more popular of having people who might be exhibitionists or whatever being on the video. So that's another thing. We also want to encourage members of the public, if they want to show support to a particular map, or if they want to show they don't like a map, that they fill out that written comment form link. And on it, they can literally say for or against, and they can write their reason. And this will allow us to tabulate and to compile this information for you in a thoughtful way. We would really want to encourage the public who take the time to make public comment to really give comments on how to improve the maps. And we can go through a process of capturing those. One thought would be, we can put a table up, and as modifications are suggested, we can just type in what the suggestions are. You as a commission, then after you've received all the public comment, can look it over and say, we would like ArcBridge to make the following modifications to A, and these other ones maybe to another version of A, or B, or C, or D. And the other thing we'll need to do is pull up the written comments for you to also look at the meeting so you can give guidance. Again, that's because of that 7-day lead time for posting of the maps. I think I'll save this. I'd like Ty to do a little presentation on this in terms of new map submissions we get. And so Ty, why don't I just turn that over and let you share your screen, and you can show them what we've set up, because we want to make sure it's clear how we number them, how we post them, and that process.
Of course. And so on the hub itself, I already started organizing it in a way to make it as clear as possible regarding official district draft maps that were submitted by the public before October 28th. Again, October 28th was the meeting where the commissioners chose which of the draft maps would move forward for additional public input and discussion. So all of the plans under this particular section were submitted prior to that meeting, prior to that discussion. Any draft maps submitted by the public that were submitted after that date is included in a separate section. And so just making it a little bit more clear for the commissioners as well as members of the public that these maps could still be under consideration, but were not included prior to your decision to move those 4 specific draft maps forward for public input. You'll notice that the ordering or the numbering and the labeling is sequential. So still OP, official plan, and continuing from where we left off with the last map prior to October 28th, OP031. And so right now on the hub itself, we have on the top the different draft map options, option A, B, C, and D. We have 2 for each. One is the PowerPoint version with the different analyses by ArcBridge, and one is the S3 layer view. And as we are receiving more maps, whether they are new submission based off of that aren't necessarily modifying one of the draft map options you have chosen, they will all be included in here. Every time I do receive these submissions, I am reaching out to the user to ask them if they haven't clarified whether or not this is a new submission or if this is modifying one of the 4 draft map options. And if it's one of the modified options, I would just include that in the title as well to make it clear for you all, as well as members of the public, that this submission was modified, for example, from option A. And so that's where we're at right now. But again, if the commission has suggestions and recommendations on how to improve this to make this more clear and transparent, we can work on that as well.
And then the other component has to be how you will consider maps submitted after October 28th to determine if they might become an option E, F, or G, or modifications to one of the earlier models.
Commissioner Vento, you have your hand up?
Yeah. Thank you, Ty. I had a couple questions. First, I'm sorry if I wasn't present at the very beginning. I'm having a bad connection right now. So I'm doing my best. I just had a question. I was under the impression, and maybe the co-chairs can elaborate on this. Are we allowed to accept more maps? I thought we were just sticking to the 4 basic maps, and then there's modifications of those 4 basic maps. But what I'm hearing from Ty is that other people are still submitting maps. So I was just, maybe you already addressed this, and I apologize if you already have. So maybe there could be some clarification about that.
So Holly can jump in to correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is we were required to present the public with some map options before we began public hearings, but we are still entitled to receive additional input in whatever form it might be, modifications of the maps we've presented, or completely new maps that we are allowed to consider those additional maps.
That's correct.
Are there any other clarifications at this point? I mean, I know we want to go back and ask for clarifications on some other points as well, but just on this piece that Ty has presented, are the clarification questions on this one?
I don't see any hands.
Okay. So can we go back then to the initial slide with the various options? So I do want to let you know that Co-Chair Williams and I, working with Gayla, Holly, and Ty, have spent quite a bit of time gaming out the schedule, different ways in which we can think about these things, but there was no, pride of authorship or sense of monopoly that we have the right answer. We're certainly open to other ways to think about things, but I will say that the fact that we have to 7 days ahead of any public hearing publish the maps we are presenting to the public for consideration. In other words, having already done it for the 4 maps, our job is not over. Every public hearing, we submit again something. Now, it could be that we'll just keep resubmitting the same thing, 7 days in advance. That's okay. But to the extent we have modifications that other maps that we're going to consider or whatever, we have to publish those 7 days in advance. But my understanding is that we also believe that having done that statutory minimum requirement, we also, in the interim, in those days prior to the date of the public hearing, we can also add a map or a map option for consideration at the public hearing, as long as we do that. I think it's 24 hours in advance of a public hearing, or is it more than that, Holly?
I wouldn't do it less than 72.
Okay, so that it's good practice to provide at least 72 hours. So as an example, it may be that on Sunday right after we complete public comment, we have further discussion and we all decide 9 votes. We actually want to instruct Preeti to create map B1, and it's different in certain ways. She can draw it up in the next day or two, and then we will add that to the next public hearing, and consider them as they go, basically. But as you can see, it's somewhat complicated because of that 7-day factor that we have. But there's a number of issues that we should grapple with tonight. At this point, and I want to have fulsome discussion about it among other commissioners, but at this point, if there are just specific questions for clarification, let's have those, and then we'll take public comment on the entire agenda item.
We have Commissioner Stetcher, then Commissioner Kenny, and Commissioner Wong.
Thanks. And thanks to the co-chairs and the executive director for working through this complicated set of script. I have two bits of clarification, questions of clarification. The first is, this makes no reference to the final map, and when we have to decide on it and post it, and I thought we had to post that one 7 days before issuing it. But could you clarify where the final map comes in here and what strings are attached to it?
I will tackle that one. The 7-day notice requirement is for the public hearings that we hold. And those we must hold 2 public hearings no less than 30 days apart. Once we have concluded that those hearings, then the commission's meetings will either be regular or special, depending on the schedule. And then the agenda that is posted for those must be 72 hours in advance for regular, 24 hours in advance for special. We do not need to post the final version of the map 7 days in advance of the meeting. And that kind of makes sense because you actually can tweak the edges or the boundaries of the map at the final meeting on which you vote to approve it. So the 7-day notice period is for the public hearings that are held, no less than 30 days apart, the 2 that are no less than 30 days, and we have 2 more sprinkled in between. So we're doing twice the statutory minimum requirement of public hearings.
That was my second question. We're not required to hold hearings 3 and 4 if we come to some clear decision in advance of that.
We're
required to hold 1 and 4.
1 and 4, that's right. We are required to hold 1 and 4.
And if I may also comment about your question of what happens after December 7th. Because if you remember, I was very concerned that we get the first public hearing started because of the 30-day window. You have December 8th, which is normally a regular meeting date. It's the second Wednesday of the month. It's likely you're going to have some other meetings, possibly on the 10th or on the weekend to come up with your final maps and the adjustments to them. And Arkbridge Pretty can sit there and she can make some of the changes on a real-time basis in the meetings. Some may take more. We are also required to provide a technical report, which I've been drafting all year. And it basically documents the process you have gone through. And then the final chapter we need to put into it, and an executive summary, is the maps you've selected, but it's to present basically the thinking that went into it all. So that's been a work in progress, and we need to apparently release that report also on December 15th. So in actuality, you may have to adopt that final map before the 15th so that we can write it up, what you've chosen to go with, and include it in the report. Holly, I don't know if you want to amplify in that, but that's another pressure point we have.
That's right. The statute specific to our commission does require that report shall be issued with the final map.
Commissioner Kenny, then Commissioner Wong, and Commissioner Holtzman.
So Co-Chair Maeda, would it be appropriate for me to ask questions about the actual conduct of the hearings at this point, or is that for a later part of the agenda?
Uh, I guess it's appropriate if it's a clarifying question. I mean, but we
Okay.
certainly are going to have fuller discussion about the public hearings. But if you have a clarifying question,
Well,
try it.
I was kind of disappointed that ArcBridge didn't come up with its own maps to present to us based on the community of interest maps that were prepared. So what I'm concerned about here is if individual commissioners review the 4 maps and have their own questions or comments about the maps, will there be an opportunity during the public hearings to have the commissioners express their thoughts about the maps? Or are the public hearings just to receive public comments from the public?
If I can also
Sure.
tackle that one and jump in, we can include an agenda item, and it is our plan to include an agenda item or describe the public hearings in such a way that there will be an opportunity for the commissioners to express their reactions, comments to the public hearings, and also express their own independent comments on edits they would like to see to maps, so that you can provide that direction to Pretty. So we are going to build that in. So it will not be the case where you only take public comment and then don't have an opportunity to discuss and debate amongst yourselves at the same meeting. You will have that chance.
Okay, my next question is, possibly it would be easier for us to focus on the maps if the maps were discussed separately. It seems like it might be confusing to have one comment on map A and the next comment on map C, and have it all smushed together, so that, it might be difficult for us to separate out the comments on the different maps. So could we possibly have either, 2 maps discussed at hearing 1 and 2 maps discussed at hearing 2, or in the hearings themselves, if you feel that's not appropriate, maybe start with A and then continue, so that the commissioners can take in the information that's being presented in a meaningful way?
So I'll start with this one, and others can jump in as well. Commissioner Kennedy, we did consider how that's going to roll out. We don't want to, I don't think, want to have a public hearing in which we're only going to talk about 2 of the maps and save the other 2 for another public hearing, because we're not having that many public hearings. And I think it's important to hear out everybody's reactions to all 4 of the public hearing. All 4 of the draft maps. But the other consideration is if we take them one at a time and say, okay, we're going to start with map A, and everybody can make a public comment on map A, then we close that, and then we say that we'll do map B, and then we close that. See, it's pretty, I think it's a good guess to think that you will have commenters who will essentially say roughly the same thing 4 different times. Map A, I don't like that one. I like map B better. Map B, yeah, I like that one. Map C, I don't like this one as much as map B, or something along those lines. I don't think that's very productive. And I think that it'd be best if we had presentations, in my view, and certainly open to discussion, have presentations by the submitters of our 4 choices, take public comment, and hopefully it'll be robust, and hopefully we'll also get good written comments. And then the commission should meet in the public setting and discuss our views on the maps. That would be certainly my suggestion.
Can I also add that one of the things we discussed was that Gayla would be also capturing the public comments as they're stated. So we'll be able to, here's her document to be capturing them, and we'll be able to have that information when we start to look at it maybe for the next meeting. But so that we won't have to try to remember everything that's said. Gayla will be capturing them for not just for us, but to also make sure that what she has is basically correct based on what people have said. So that's another way that we'll be trying to capture the public comments for our own personal review when we start to look at the maps. Gayla, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
And then my next question is, when will the Voting Rights Act analysis on the 4 maps be completed?
I can answer that. I've been in communication with Bruce Adelson and Jonathan Katz, and we plan to put that on the agenda for your regular meeting on November 10th.
Okay, and then my last comment is that I think it would make sense to cap the length of the public hearings to 3 hours.
I think we can discuss that further when we get to the discussion point. Questions for clarification, Commissioner Wong?
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of clarifying questions from me. So if a commissioner wants to either adjust the maps or ask Pretty to adjust the maps, do we have to, well, obviously, let's say to request some modifications to the maps, do we have to do that during the meetings, or can we do that? Can we request that, offline? It's not clear to me how we provide input into these maps. And if we did want to change the maps or adjust them, then would we then, if we did it ourselves, then we'd have to submit them as a modification of the maps and have it discussed that way? I hope I'm making myself clear.
I think so. Good question. Holly, is there an issue if a commissioner wants to make an adjustment to a map and they get, one-on-one help doing that from Pretty? Or is that something that shouldn't be done, but just suggested at a public hearing or a public meeting where there's non-commissioners present?
No, if an individual commissioner needs assistance on preparing a modified map or a tweaked map, I would think they could get that assistance from staff directly.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Wong?
Yes, part of it. And then would we then have to, let's say, submit that as a modified modification of the map, of one of the maps, for if we wanted to discuss it at one of the hearings?
Ideally, you would, just so people could pull it up and the public could see what you're talking about. The other alternative, which I don't suggest, but it's technically possible, as I guess we could display it somehow live, but we'd need to know, you'd need to have it in advance. So submitting it is best. Now, it may be you're only able to submit it, the day before or the morning of or something, and we could just try to post it immediately, just as we would any public comment that comes in, the day before a meeting.
But more transparency would be possible if it was actually posted for the public, right? Rather than just.
Oh, yes,
raised.
we would post. When I'm talking about posting it, we'd be posting it on the website,
right? No,
associated with the meeting.
This was directed more to Commissioner Wong and anyone who's thinking about it, any of the commissioners
Right.
thinking about it. The more in advance, the more it's public, et cetera, is
Sure.
best.
Yes, of course. And so just to clarify the timing, because, the 72 hours in advance and the 7 days in advance, was a little confusing. So ideally to discuss any kind of maps, whether it's new maps or modified maps, we need to put it on the website 72 hours in advance. That's what you were recommending, right, Holly? At a minimum 24 hours, but ideally 72 hours?
That's the ideal. Something could come in less than that. and we can post as quickly as possible. I think, but 72 hours is ideal.
Okay.
I mean,
And just-
certainly, we will, the public will submit maps.
Mhm.
If you can imagine this, when we issue the 7-day notice with maps, it is intended to, and we are encouraging the public to now give us feedback, including their own modifications of maps. So maps that come in less than 7 days can be considered or talked about at the public hearing. They may not be the focus maps, but those can be considered, including whether it comes from a commissioner on less than 7 days. 72 hours is I would recommend as the minimum, but that does not mean if it came in less than 72 hours, we would prohibit discussing it.
If I may also just elaborate, I mean, I realize a number of the commissioners have desires to do tweaking to the maps. So, an example, if I may, Commissioner Priscilla Orpinella Segura had indicated support of a particular map, but she wanted, I believe, El Monte and South El Monte combined, or I can't remember exactly the communities. So the thinking would be after your public hearing number 1, that part of your agenda item would be to look over what the public provides as input. We can add to it suggestions you all may have, and maybe ArcBridge then could do some of that collectively, at one time. And we could then post it on November 10th. At your regular meeting on November 10th that evening, you could look at them further. And if you want some further refinements, you could do that. And we could still do an addendum by Friday of that week, which gives us the 72 hours before the November 17th public hearing. So rather than maybe 14 of you all going to ArcBridge and asking for, tweaking of the maps, you may want to think about it in a holistic way. And after you come out of public hearing number 1, if you don't feel your ideas got addressed, then go to ArcBridge and say, I really do want to put together this other option for consideration, if that makes sense.
Right, although we can't have too many commissioners do it jointly like that. Otherwise it would be.
Oh, I'm saying do it in a public meeting, the discussion of the modifications. And then if you decide as an individual that you want a different take on it, then you clearly can go do that. But I think you may find when you have a compilation of suggested tweaks from the public and the other commissioners, there may be patterns and points of agreement. That's, maybe not, but it's possible.
And my last point is just, if we wanted to invite the drafters of the maps, I think, Kayla, you said we should invite them quickly for them to come to Sunday's hearing.
Yes, that would be my intention, because obviously they give you the rationale behind their maps. Their maps now are your maps. They may go through some permutations, but I think you should hear from them what the baseline map thinking was.
Thank you. That's my
But it's your choice.
Commissioner Holtzman?
Okay, not my question, but just to follow up on what was just discussed. I see on the agenda for the first public hearing that we will have presentations from the 4 map drafters. What happens if I kind of thought that was already going to happen? What's up with that? That agenda can't be changed now because it's within 7 days, right?
No, let me address that. It actually is the reverse. By putting that placeholder there, it gave us the ability to invite them if you decided today you wanted to invite them. We can pull that item without any problem with the notice, but we couldn't add an item without running afoul of the notice. So it was included as a placeholder of an abundance of caution. If you decide not to invite them, that item just gets pulled on the agenda approval.
Okay, I get why you did that. It just gave me the impression that you'd already invited them, or somebody had already invited them. Sorry. So my clarifying question has to do with has to do with timing and the scheduling that's shown on the screen now. I'd just like to check my understanding of something. It's my understanding that once we've completed the final hearing, we can use special meetings for the rest of our work. In other words, for the rest of, just considering options and drawing the final map, preparing the report, addressing whatever issues we want to. So we really only have to give 24 hours notice of each meeting after the final hearing. And we're allowed to do that. I'm not necessarily saying that we could do that, we should do that. But I just want to clarify my understanding there. It's my understanding that we are allowed to use special meetings from there on out, except for any regular meetings that may have already been added to the calendar.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing you should consider in terms of if you do want us to invite the presenters is how much time you would give them. If whether or not it'd be a 5-minute or a 10-minute presentation. There would be 4 presentations.
Okay, any other clarification questions before we take public comment?
Mr. Kenny?
I do have a question. So if we only have to give 24 hours notice of a special meeting, can we just schedule special meetings for every day between December 7th and December 15th and then pull them if we don't need them?
Yes, you can. You can have a standing agenda that we did that for you last week. We went ahead and scheduled Friday, just in case you did not arrive at a decision by Thursday. We had a placeholder agenda and then we canceled it. So that is definitely an option. I will tell you, I kept the December 15th regular date for a meeting for you all because I thought if nothing else, we should celebrate.
Hope springs eternal. Any other clarification questions before we go to public comment? Oh, I think I saw Commissioner Mendoza.
Yes, for some reason, for quite some time now, the electronic hand isn't working. Do we have ArcBridge available tonight? Should there be questions directly of it?
Yes, Pretty is here.
Great, thank you.
Okay, let's take public comment. Before we actually have any public comment, let me just say what we are talking about, addressing the public, is questions of process. We're going to have a discussion about, the various items you've now seen on the staff report on the slides. Please do not spend the time right now giving us your opinions about the maps substantively. We want those opinions. Please come to the public hearing with them or provide them to us in a written format. We have options linked in the chat on our website, etc. That information is important, but this is not the time for that. So please refrain from doing that and only raise your hand for public comment if you're talking about the items that we're addressing in this particular agenda item. Appreciate it. Ty, can you roll with the public comments?
Of course. So our first public commenter is Henry Fung. Henry, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and if you are comfortable, you may share your video. Once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your public comment.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so again, my name is Henry Fung, and my comments as a member of public regarding this, I don't think there should be a time limit on the meetings. There can be a timeline where you have to sign up by a certain time, say 8 p.m., and then you'll be able to speak. But kind of like voting, if you get there on time, you should be allowed to speak, regardless of whether there's 20 people or 200 people ahead of you. So that's just for fairness. We have 10 million people in LA County, and it does appear that because each map change becomes iterative, that people like myself who really care about where certain communities are located and connected with other communities of interest might have to attend and even comment on at all 4 meetings. So it's going to be a long process. I thank you all for staying up and listening to us, but we are a large county. There's 10 million people in LA County, and I hope that as many of them that want their voices to be heard get to be heard. So I would not have a fixed time limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Next, we have Chris Rowe. Chris, momentarily, you'll be able to unmute yourself. And if you are comfortable, you may share your video. And once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your public comments.
Honorable Commissioners, I would like to say that I agree with the previous speaker. All 4 maps should be available at every meeting. I am looking at the map that is your back screen right now. When you go to look at the maps, A, B, C, D currently, you don't see the mountains, you don't see the streets, and stuff are not clear, especially when a map is all blue. So please, is there a way that Pretty can create layers where we can look at each of these maps and again, all 4 maps, divide the meeting. What do you like about A? What do you like about B, C, D, and things? And I just am concerned about, for example, environmental issues, people dividing a district based on maybe voters' rights, but not about environmental issues. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we have Barbara Broidy. Barbara, momentarily, you will be able to unmute yourself. And if you are comfortable, you may share your video. And once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your public comment. Okay. Barbara, whenever you are ready, please unmute yourself.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for your work. I was a little disappointed not to have the benefit of your experience thus far in analyzing the 4 maps and having you tweak those 4 maps prior to having public comment. You have heard information from across the county, and rather than have the public do the tweaking first, I thought it would be very helpful to see whether the commission could come up with an application of the input thus far on 1 or more of the maps so that the public could comment on your best thoughts to date. And I realize you're already discussing process and coming upon a pathway, but I don't want to see this to devolve into a popularity contest where one group or another will present their map and then lobby to get all their constituents to vote and suddenly have it appear that all of this earlier comment is lost.
Thank you, Barbara. Co-chairs, we currently have no other in line. Would you like to close public comment for 5A?
Yes, let's close public comment in 5A and then let's go round robin with the commission.
Would it help for me to put the PowerPoint up or just not?
I think so. I think it probably would help.
Okay, so going round robin, we're going to start with Commissioner Saida Soto.
And to clarify, this is to offer feedback or reflection on sort of what's being proposed, right? Or what's been laid out for us.
Yeah, on any of the items.
So the item that I'd like to just offer my opinion on is regarding the capping the time for the public hearings. I do think that this is such a unique process we are all engaging and have committed to, and a unique opportunity for the residents of the County of Los Angeles. And I find the thought of having a lot of people show up to comment really exciting. And so I also think, you know, we haven't had such an overflow of comments in any of our hearings really that it almost doesn't make sense to me to cap this. But again, primarily it's an opportunity to have the community comment. So I'm not in support of capping public hearing time.
Commissioner Stetcher?
I'll make two comments. One is I strongly support inviting the developers to come and talk to us and talk about their approach and the motivation behind their map. And that's partially because I think it's more transparent. Since I'm a member of the commission, I get to talk to you in theory more easily. And I would like the other map developers to have an equal sense that they were open, this community of this CRC was open to their input. The second point is, I agree with the earlier speaker, Ms. Broidy, I believe it was, who was concerned that we haven't had a chance to bring our own now refined insight into this discussion. And I hope that somehow in this meeting schedule, perhaps at more special meetings, we'll get to pull up the maps and sit down and talk about boundaries and add our now educated perspective to what the single developers or developer groups provided to us.
Commissioner Vento?
No comment.
Co-Chair Williams?
I just want to add, I think we do need to keep the public hearings open. I agree with Commissioner Saito Soto that, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I got your name wrong. But I agree that if we have a huge number of people who show up to make comments, we need to keep that open to make sure they're heard. And that's part of the process, what the public hearing is about. I like Commissioner Stetcher's comment too, that when do we have a chance to talk about our own comments in terms of modifications or, suggested changes. I believe it is built into the process. And again, Commissioner Opinella Segura, I'm sorry for getting your name wrong, but I agree with your comments as well. So I just wanted to add that.
Commissioner Wong?
Yes, thank you. Yes, as to, the prior, I agree with the prior comments, that I do think this is an opportunity for the public to comment, and I do want to hear everybody have a chance. I do want everybody to have a chance, all the residents to have a chance to share their public comments. So I don't think we should cap the time limit. And if it means, other commissions have had to have long evenings, and I think I'm committed to doing that. As for the format, I understand that having the video format may delay things, but I think it does help to have the video format. I think that sometimes we have problems with the audio as well as the video, so I don't think that's going to save us much time. So I just want to make it as easy as possible for the public to be able to make their comments. So I would, support continuing to provide the opportunities to provide public comments the way we've been doing it. And then as to inviting the map developers, yes, I would very much like to hear their approaches and perspectives, and also have the ability to ask them questions about their maps too. So I would be happy to invite them to our Sunday hearing, if hopefully that's enough time so they can prepare for that. I think that that's all the different, I believe that's all the different issues. Thanks.
Commissioner Franklin?
I thank you. Um, again, I also believe that we should keep and not cap the meetings as far as the public hearings are concerned. However, I do have one, well, I shouldn't say a comment. I should have asked it during the clarifying questions. I hope I'm not out of order. But as far as inviting the map makers, I believe that we should invite them to come, as well as the analysis of the Voting Rights Act with Bruce Edelson and Dr. Katz. So I would love to have an analysis of the maps that we already have put forth, the 4 maps, and any modifications to those. As far as the additional maps that are coming through, this, I believe, would be a great time to have the lead of the ad hoc committee that we had agreed to have look at those maps and make recommendations, or whether they should move forward or not. So those are my comments.
Commissioner Franklin, if I may, we are going to be putting Bruce Adelson and Dr. Jonathan Katz on the agenda for November 10th to indeed do exactly what you asked for, to go through the racially polarized voting analysis on the 4 base maps. They need some time to complete that analysis, and that was a time they could do it.
Okay, Commissioner Holtzman?
Thank you. First, to respond to some things I've heard, I would be willing, once this discussion is over, to make a motion to reject the idea of capping the length of public hearings to X hours. I would also be willing to make a motion to add truth to our posted agenda, truth value, and invite the 4 map makers to make presentations. About the slide that's on the screen now, I think it's kind of silly to waste the public hearing time on December 7th when we won't be able to post any modified maps from the previous hearing because of not enough time in between them. So I would suggest putting off that final hearing to Thursday the 9th or Friday the 10th, which would give us time to post modified maps for consideration at that hearing, at the final hearing, and not bust our timeline. It would not bust our timeline for coming up with a final map. So just please consider that. Anyway, I think it's just silly to have a hearing where we can't consider modified maps from the previous hearing according to that time frame. So anyway, before we had this meeting tonight, I jotted down just a few ideas that I thought would help with us having hearings. So I'll go through them if I can read my handwriting. One, I think it would be good if in some way we could discourage duplicate testimony from multiple commenters. I'm not sure exactly how we would do that, but I think it's worth discussing and considering. I would also like to be able to encourage commenters to disclose who helped them prepare their comments, because I think that's useful information to have. I mean, we can't require them to do that, but that would be good. I wrote down allow at least 2 minutes per witness, if you want to call them witnesses or commenters. Allow at least 2 minutes per, and before each leaves the microphone, I'd like to have the chairs ask commissioners if they have reactions to share or follow-up questions, so we don't lose that opportunity. I thought it'd be a good idea to have a special meeting 1 or 2 days after each hearing to discuss what we heard. Just an idea, just putting it out there. And I was thinking maybe we could have 2 hearings per week until the end of the 30-day period, but it looks like that would be logistically complicated. So those are my suggestions, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Commissioner Kenny?
So I just wanted to point out, Commissioner Holtzman, if we did talk about doing the addendum. So on, we could add an addendum to maps after the public hearing on December 1st, as long as it's within 72 hours of December 7th. So just keep that in mind.
Commissioner Kenny?
Yeah, I just want to make clear that I am interested in public comments, and I'm just going to throw out the idea that maybe the public hearings could start at 6 instead of 7.
Co-Chair Maeda?
Thank you. As to, I have a number of comments, I'm sorry. As to Barbara Broidy's comment about wanting to hear what the commissioner's views are, which Commissioner Stetcher also suggested is important. I agree, but on the other hand, we thought the co-chair, the two co-chairs thought that we should allow the public to get a shot, the first shot at taking on the 4 maps that the commission has been talking about and has put forward. But at the hearing, or after the public comment period of the hearing on Sunday, the first public hearing, the commissioners hopefully will have time to then state whatever their comments are about what they've heard that day, as well as the maps generally, and can advise Preeti to create additional map options, et cetera. And on November 10th, the regular meeting, we're going to hear from the VPA consultants, voting polarization analysis consultants, but then also the rest of the meeting pretty much is going to be devoted to doing the very thing that you all are talking about. The commission is going to grapple with the comments, suggest the tweaks, take a look at the tweaked maps if we do ask Preeti to make one, et cetera. So we are going to, and that's pretty early in the process of that. As far as capping the public hearings, a couple things to think about. One is if we do have a in-person component, such as a hybrid public hearing, there are demands on the people who help facilitate these hearings that we need to keep in mind. The sound people, security, et cetera. And so we may not be able to just, if we do a patriotic call, we may not be able to go into 11, 12, et cetera. So that's a concern I would have. I kind of like Henry Fung's idea of saying, if you've signed up by a certain time period, then you're assured that you'll get the chance to address us. And so that's not a total cap in terms of we're shutting down at 10, but it allows us to have some degree of control over, so that we don't go into 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, et cetera. And still allows, as he said, everyone, it's like voting, everyone who shows up by the deadline gets a chance. Let's see. I agree that we should invite the 4 map, or we should invite the map presenters of the 4 maps to present on Sunday. Video. So you may have noticed that it takes an additional 10 to 30 seconds before people get their video, get elevated to panelists, unmute, et cetera. Whereas very few people actually take the trouble of showing their face, using the video. I strongly suggest we just have audio only. I don't think we really are gaining much with the additional video for the very few people who agree to do that. As to Commissioner Holtzman's remarks, on December 7th, as Gayla mentioned, we can in fact consider the tweaked maps that arise out of the December 1st hearing. As far as discouraging duplicate testimony, I would love to hear a good way to discourage duplicate testimony. We don't know of any. If anybody has any ideas along those lines, please share it. and then disclose who helped them with their testimony. I just feel that's impracticable. But again, if there's ways in which you think we can make that happen without being too imposing, then I'd like to hear it. Thank you.
Commissioner Mendoza.
Thank you. I think the magnitude of what's at stake warrants the meeting going as long as it needs to hear those that want to make a comment. And I too agree with Commissioner Co-Chair Maeda that perhaps Mr. Fong's suggestion or a variation of that would be good to basically get people lined up in the queue and they'll know that they'll be able to speak. And I also recognize that it's not just our time, but as Co-Chair Maeda points out, there's other people that facilities people and communications people that are going to be working. So I guess we obviously need to be mindful of that too. Last week at our back-to-back meeting, I don't remember the name of the articulate woman that spoke about we as commissioners not having produced a map ourselves. And she was absolutely correct. We haven't produced a map. And again, tonight to hear, I believe it's Ms. Brody, I apologize if that's not the correct name. And I think there's been plenty of time for us to be taking in information and being somewhat, well, let me say it this way, not proactive. And I think now is a time where we need to be more proactive and put something forth, with the exception of the three commissioners, I believe three commissioners who propose maps themselves. We as commissioners haven't put one together. So whether we're going to tweak one or all four or produce one altogether different, I think my expectation is that we're going to do some heavy lifting now. Otherwise, we're not doing our job, in my opinion. So I'd just like to see if we can, make I guess a meaningful difference. And that's one of the ways I think we can. I'd like for Commissioner Holzman to reiterate what his expectation is of presenters and providing certain information. I think Co-Chair Maeda referenced it and I was trying to write it down and then I got called on. What is it that you would like for them to do, Commissioner Holtzman?
Commissioner Mendoza, I was hoping that we could discourage witnesses, commenters from offering duplicate testimony or comments, whatever you call it. And I do think we could add something about that to the instructions for public comments. So, Commissioner would appreciate it if you do not repeat things previous commenters have already said, something like that. And then the other piece was to encourage disclosure of who helped prepare remarks. Just, a little more difficult to do, but it would show you if there were coordinated efforts between multiple commenters. There you have it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So the no comment on the first part of your statement, but the second part, I don't know that whether it's inner self or God that or whatever or whomever was the guiding I'll call it guiding force or inspiration. I don't know. I don't think that's appropriate to ask the presenters of the maps myself. So I'm not sure what we would gain from that. It probably would lead to potentially other questions. But anyways, those are my comments. Thank you.
It's just something that you would ask of a witness in a legal proceeding. It doesn't have to be something we do.
Right. Which this is not. We want to make sure that we're receptive to comments and not having, in my opinion, having people reticent to participate and for some reason. Thank you.
Commissioner Morales.
Thank you. So I appreciate Commissioner Stetcher's perspective on providing equal time for the other map makers to make their case and present to us. In terms of a no time limit, I do agree with having plenty of time with however many folks we need. And again, yeah, I was also looking at the hybrid model, how we could not be able to do that if the place closes at 9:30 or 10 p.m. We just couldn't go on all night. That's just logistically impossible. The other is around this concept of disclosure and repetitive comments. I believe there's a free speech that we have to take into consideration. So no matter how much we put out there to the public, as long as it's on topic, folks can say whatever they want. And so, you know, in terms of making sure that we have a sense of how long the night is going to be and having, the perspective of having you register to make your public comment and it's a cutoff time at this point, I do agree with that. It gives us a sense of where we're going to have a long night or a short night. And we can accommodate ourselves, maybe the co-chair's going to, provide for some breaks, and into consideration, that kind of stuff. Because some of us have, full-time jobs and families that we got to put kids to bed. And we can't just rely on our partners to be able to do that. We have to do our part. So, that's just our life in that regard. And so I'm looking at the dates here. There's like a one Sunday and the rest are Wednesdays and Tuesday nights. That's I think we just have to be kind of realistic. If we're going to 2-3 o'clock in the morning, at some point we have to be realistic in terms of how much how capable we are to function the next day in our day-to-day kind of life. So I understand, this is what we're set out to do. And I think we've been committed in doing that and making sure that we hear from the public and decide on how these maps are going to be drawn up by the commission. And so I just want to be mindful that, we have to be realistic in terms of how we use our time and, how we're getting to the end of this, the final product. That's all.
Commissioner Obregon?
No comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Orpanela Segura?
Yes, I am supportive of not limiting the time that folks can speak. Redistricting happens every 10 years. So I think a couple nights with a few hours, it's worth the time that, redistricting happens. I am supportive of the idea of setting a schedule where folks can sign up, maybe an hour and a half for people to sign up and to ensure that their feedback will be heard through public hearing. And I have a question. If perhaps someone does not meet the deadline, we can encourage folks to submit written comments instead. In case someone isn't able to make the time in which they're able to submit. In regards to repetitive comments, I actually find those to be helpful sometimes because it gives me an idea of what the community is supportive and not supportive of. So I value comments that show, diverse opinions. And perhaps we forgo the hybrid option and keep it virtual to not restrict any timelines. I think, we've been working virtually for so long, it works. So maybe we consider removing a hybrid. Yes, those are all my comments.
Commissioner Haile-Soto?
Yes, thank you. In terms of inviting the map drawers, I think that's appropriate, and I definitely support that. I think maybe 5-10 minute presentation might be helpful, just so we could hear the thought process, even though some of the maps did explain it, but not all 4 of them. So I think that would give an equal opportunity for all the maps to be reviewed. In terms of the time limit, at least in the initial meetings, I think there should be no time limit. So if we continue for the virtual ones, I think it's important to continue receiving as much public testimony. But maybe we can potentially add some built-in breaks, automatic breaks into our scheduled meetings. We are going to be having interpreters at least Spanish interpreters in if there's additional requests. And interpreting is a very tough task and very taxing for the interpreters. So I think it will be helpful for them to know that there's going to be breaks, so then they could recoup and continue to provide that very important service. So I think however we decide to proceed, whether starting earlier, maybe we could just simply add in those automatic built-in breaks. I think it seems like some other commissions, including the California Redistricting Commission, it seems like based on some meetings that I tuned into, they had some automatic breaks as well. So it seems like it works and it helped with the interpreters as well. That's it.
So all commissioners have had the opportunity to speak.
Any additional comments, discussion?
Co-Chair Williams?
Thank you. I just wanted to go back to the public comment management and just again state that encouraging members of the public to use the comment form, especially if they want to say, I like a particular map, or I won't say vote, but if they want to suggest they support a particular map, it's easy for us to tabulate that in a written comment rather than, having to publicly state that to us. We get that kind of feedback, whether it's written or whether we hear it. So that's a way for us to help manage the time. And also, even if they would like to talk about, how they'd like to see some changes to the map, that can also be documented. So I'm looking at how do we manage the time? How do we find a way to get as many comments as possible? We do read everything that's written, and we're hearing it if you're making a public statement, but whether it's public or written, we do take all that into consideration.
I see no other hands. Oh, I see Commissioner Wong.
Oh, I just want to support Commissioner Openella Segura's and suggestion to actually maybe just consider doing hybrid meetings, because that if we are worried about the staff considerations of an in-person location, I actually hadn't thought of that issue. I don't want staff to have to also work long hours. The people staffing the location. So that would weigh in favor of just doing virtual hearings. Thank you.
I see no other hands.
So calling myself. The issue about the hybrid hearings, yes, it does create logistical issues in terms of how long we could stay especially if we're doing a nighttime hearing. On the other hand, we have heard in the past about folks having technology challenges, and not everyone has a computer. Not everyone, can access Zoom. Is intimidated by using the technology to do it. It seems like to me we ought to have at least one opportunity for people to come in person to bring forth their views. Maybe I'm in the minority on that, but I just think that is I think that would help us in terms of explaining the way in which we try to be as transparent and accepting of and meeting the public where they may be, is my view.
Commissioner Holtzman?
Yeah, I'm persuaded by Commissioner Maeda's remarks just now. I would just say that I think if we do have an in-person hearing, I think we should make it only in person and dispense with all the technological complications that are involved with trying to broadcast it at the same time. I think we should do something like that the old-fashioned way. There you go.
Commissioner Saida Soto?
I think what we might want to think about and acknowledge Chris Rowe has posted a comment there encouraging us or asking the question about our outreach plan, because I think that focusing some of our attention and outreach on encouraging, or at least highlighting the fact that people can call in to a hearing and making sure that that is easily accessible for individuals and a viable option. I think, is it the case that most individuals who show up to public comment have been via video? I might not be speaking accurately about that, but
I can answer. Most of the people have come in through Zoom. Some have called in by cell.
Yeah, thank you.
Our Zoom.
Okay, so I go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just want to let the public know they're not supposed to use the QA to provide written comments to the commission. That is for signing up for oral comment. There are a number of interesting points in QA. It would be wonderful if you would copy and paste those into the written comment form so we can have it as a historic record. I'm sorry, Commissioner Saito, to go on.
Not a problem. Thank you for that reminder. And so I think, and I know we have an ad hoc working group, to discuss outreach, but I think it may really be valuable for us as a commission to discuss outreach to ensure that, as we're thinking about capping a public hearing, that we're actually going to have people turn out and not just via Zoom, but calling in, and if we decide we move forward with a hybrid format, that they're showing up in person, right? Because I think if we're gonna move forward with putting the resources into a hybrid public hearing, we need to make sure that we're backing that up with outreach. Thank you.
And Commissioner Saito, if I can just sort of elaborate in terms of public outreach, we have begun the media launch, as you know, and so we now have banners and advertising things in a whole host of variety of media. So, promoting the public hearing. So again, we'll see what the impact is and see what the turnout is. I'm not sure planning for the meeting would have had the greatest draw, but if you notice, you have larger participation this week than you have had, back in September, October.
Co-Chair Williams, then Commissioner Orpanela Segura.
I'd like to just follow up on the comment. I think it was Commissioner Kinney, but someone said perhaps we should consider starting our meetings a little bit earlier. I know for those who work, 6 o'clock is a little early, but maybe consider looking at starting our hearings maybe at 6:30, just to provide a little bit more time for the people to be able to make comments as needed. So I just want to go back and reiterate that.
Commissioner Orpanela Segura.
Two questions. Did we have two meetings at Patriotic Hall? Is that correct?
We've held one. We had a special meeting in Patriotic Hall.
Okay.
What I don't know is if, come December, if you want to hold any of those at Patriotic Hall.
How many people were present in person at that meeting?
We had one person in person.
Okay, and more or less in all the meetings, in-person meetings that we had, what was the highest number of in-person folks that we had?
We had a large turnout at the Bellflower Library. I would say it was around 20 in person, plus the Zoom. San Fernando City, we also had a large turnout. A lot of those individuals came from the People's Block and, Churla, and came because they very much wanted to speak. So I will continue to work with the CBOs because the community-based organizations are the ones that can seem to rally to get the people to come out. At the Antelope Valley College, I was doing that remotely because I had to be in quarantine. What would be the attendance there? Do you think we had maybe 50?
Oh, no, much.
No.
Oh, no, maybe 8.
8? And West Valley College was probably a dozen at most.
I think
And
it
one
was
of them was
one. I think it was 1. No, it was 3. 3.
It was 3.
I will just mention, I think people are very comfortable with the virtual model. You were the first commission in the history of Los Angeles County to do virtual meetings, so bravo to you. You were also the first commission to experiment with hybrid, which probably will become the future model. It is a lot of work, and we wanted to make sure the COI input from the community, that people who did not have access to computers could come and give input on their communities. You'll have to decide what you want to do about these next public hearings.
Okay, I was asking just to gauge an idea, since we are considering whether to do hybrid or not, to see if the investment really has, what the investment looks like in terms of in-person attendance.
I think the other thing that I don't know is you realize you're independent. You've been very transparent. We post everything on the website. We probably have another 50 or so people who look at your meetings on YouTube after the meeting. What I don't know is, like in 2011, they only had, I believe, 1 or 2 public hearings. They were very much back to back. And as you recall, it was the Board of Supervisors had the final say. They changed the maps. They had over 1,000 people show up. And they filled the Board of Supervisors room. Now, I've been bracing myself for this onslaught of the public who would really get engaged when we have the map. So I think we'll know better on Sunday how many people turn out. And I think we'll probably have more on the 17th, probably even more on the 1st. And maybe we just take it public hearing to decide if you want to have either December 1st or December 7th in person or hybrid. We just don't know what the numbers are going to be. There's been a pandemic. People have learned to use Zoom. Other redistricting efforts have been highly controversial. You folks have not been. So, sometimes they know news is good news. But I know you want a large turnout.
Commissioner Holtzman?
Well, when you mentioned the use of the Q&A box for comments, I looked in the Q&A box and I saw that Barbara Brady has some ideas about what we might do. And I know she has a lot of relevant experience. And I've copied and saved them as a image file, but I urge us to consider them. If I may, I'd like to briefly summarize them. So one thing that the LA City Council does is that if they have a room full of people brought in by a group, they create a way for that group to identify themselves. Everybody stands up together and raises their hand and supports a particular point of view. And our team is doing that, and their names are signed in as doing that. It's one way to handle multiple similar comments. And also, she says that the city of LA, makes a distinction between those speaking before council who are paid to represent someone, who are actually lobbyists, and who are not. That's a checkbox on the speaker card. I think that sort of thing could be a good idea. And then she also has the idea that, like the city does, you can set up a couple of different locations for a hybrid meeting where people can come speak before a monitor and participate, whether or not they have their own technology. So I just wanted to read those so they can be part of the record without her having to copy and paste. Thank you.
Co-Chair Maeda?
So those are interesting ideas that work if you are in person. They do not work if you are on Zoom. I don't think there's a practical way to say everybody who's out there in the public, if you support this particular thing, or if you were called, brought here by some organization, raise your hand. I just don't think that works the way we've got it set up. So, perhaps if we were hybrid and we had 500 people show up, we could do something like that. But I don't think that's our reality.
I feel Zoom does support surveys, and we could have people type things in like, oh, I just support X in the chat or comments or something like that. Surveys might actually be a good thing to use.
So yes, that's might be possible, but I will say that one of the reasons for doing the exercises that Ms. Brody was talking about was so people could feel, okay, they've been counted, they've been heard.
Mm-hmm.
We all, the city council members see them in front of them, what a mass of people they are. So hopefully that will then discourage them from each individually getting up and saying exactly the same thing time and again. Yeah. I don't think a survey quite has that same impact, but I could be wrong. But I do agree that we can periodically say, if you are just simply reiterating what someone else has said, you can do that. We can't stop you, but you can just as easily just indicate that in the public comment form. That would be helpful to us. But I think it's correct that if someone wants to just do that and they want to like people to do it, to say exactly the same thing, read from the same script, there's nothing we can really do about it.
I'm wondering on this topic, would it help if Ty or I showed what the public comment form is like? Because it does keep track of for and against. So if the public were to fill it out, it would be very handy because they can go map A, map B, map C, map D, whatever. They can indicate they're for, against, or abstain, and they can write their comment and their rationale, and you'll have a written record of it then. We can create easily a Zoom survey, but it wouldn't identify the people. It would just give you the number and percentage of the people. I do know in other formats, they do have people type into chat their thoughts, and we can absolutely save that chat record then and have it entered and have a tally there. Again, those are all techniques you use in a workshop. I believe with Brown Act, Holly, you need to weigh in on the viability of any of those techniques.
Well, I think in terms of Zoom poll, if the Zoom poll is of the public in attendance, there's no Brown Act issues there. I would recommend that, when the results came up, they would be read into the record. Of course, they would also be captured by this format we have where it's recorded on YouTube, but it's also good to read it in the record. Could put it in the minutes as well. The chat thing is a bit harder, I think, to track. I don't think it necessarily represents any Brown Act issues per se. I just think that is harder for the commissioners. It doesn't replace, I think, real-time comments, because you have to be then focused on reading the chat as opposed to listening on what's going on. So that may be just a more practical issue as opposed to a Brown Act issue.
Commissioner Orpanella Segura, then Commissioner Morales.
I just want to make sure, does Zoom poll work if for folks calling in?
No.
No. Okay, so then that would be an issue. And I would dissuade from using the chat function because I think it can get unmanageable. If someone were to make profane or use profane language, we wouldn't be able to monitor right away. I think it's just an element that, someone would have to be dedicated to looking over. So I would dissuade from the use of using the chat function and poll as well.
Commissioner Morales?
Yeah, I had a similar concern in terms of like, how do you poll people that are calling in? So we would be disenfranchising folks on one end if we did that. So yeah, I think just in terms of what we can do, I think we have some good suggestions and we should be moving on them.
I see no other hands.
Is there a motion? I will make a motion just to get a sense of where we are on this. My motion is to not have any cap on the public hearing on Sunday, but for the public hearings that are on weekdays, that we start at 6:30. We have a cutoff of at 8 p.m. for folks to sign up to make an oral comment. So long as they've signed up by that deadline, they can make a comment, and we will stay as long as it takes to hear everybody who has signed up by that day and by that time. That we will take regular breaks, and that the comments will be heard by audio only, not video. Is there a second?
A second.
That was Commissioner Kenny.
Yes.
Any comments, discussion?
Co-Chair Williams, then Commissioner Holtzman, and then Commissioner Orpanela-Segura.
Is this a place where I'd like to just amend the motion to include the public comment management suggestions? You mentioned one of them, that we only go by audio. There are two others: encourage members of the public to show support, either yes or no for a particular map, and then to encourage them to make adjustments to the map. They can to use the public comment form. So I want to include all of the things that were listed under the public comment management as part of that motion.
I will accept those as a friendly amendment if Commissioner Kenny will second that.
Second.
Commissioner Holtzman, then Commissioner Orpanela-Segura.
I'd also like to propose a friendly amendment if you'll accept it, and that would be to make those regular breaks at least once every hour and 45 minutes and at least 10 minutes in length. What do you say?
That would work for me. Commissioner Kenny, would you second that amendment?
Second.
Excellent.
Let me make sure I heard it. So 50 minutes, then a 10-minute break, or 1 hour and a 10-minute break?
No, it's an hour and 45.
Yeah, hour 40, no more than 1 hour and 45 minutes before a break, and then at least 10 minutes per break.
Commissioner Orpanela-Segura.
So I have a question for the hybrid meetings. Is that going to be discussed like on a meeting by meeting basis, or can it be excluded from the motion?
So that's a good question. So this would be for, I guess I would have to say this would be for the virtual only meetings, and not to say we're going to do or not do a hybrid meeting. This is for all virtual hearings that we have. Holly, am I still okay, or do I need to restate everything?
You're still okay. You and Commissioner Kenny have accepted all friendly amendments.
Okay. Any further, Commissioner Wong?
Would you accept another friendly amendment to say if you sign up by 9 o'clock, we would accept the comments?
For me, no. I don't accept that friendly amendment. Not that I'm being unfriendly, but I don't accept that amendment. Commissioner Wong, did you want to make an amended motion to present that?
You mean a motion in opposition to your motion?
Yes.
Well, let me suggest another friendly amendment to 8:30 to see if that would be amenable to you.
I mean, I'm already giving an hour and a half to sign up, so I would say no. I think we should hold the line at a certain reasonable time, and I think 90 minutes is plenty of time.
Okay, then I would make a motion that we follow exactly your motion, you know, I don't even know, I cannot repeat it unfortunately, but to change the time to accept public comments to 9 o'clock.
To sign up to make a public oral public comment. To 9
Correct,
o'clock.
correct.
That's the motion. Is there a second?
Second. Second.
Sergeant Soto seconds. Okay. Any further discussion?
Commissioner Holtzman?
I'm gonna call the question on the motion to amend.
Okay. And Holly, there was some back and forth about what we're going to be voting on. Can you clarify, if we take roll on this, what we will actually be doing? Will we be adopting the amended motion, and that would extinguish my motion? Or
Yes.
is it, okay, so that's what it is. So if we vote yes, then Commissioner Wong's motion, which is an amendment of mine, carries. If we vote no, then her motion fails. My motion is still alive.
Yes, and then we would, if it's the latter, then we would still have to vote on your motion.
Correct. Commissioner Vento.
I'm sorry, could somebody, I hate to ask this, but could somebody actually write out the motion so I understand what we're doing, or repeat it? So I'm just kind of clear on what we're actually doing.
Do you want me to open up a screen and do that for you?
Sure.
That would be better for me to see this. I'm just a little confused.
Oops. Okay. Do you want me to just put up there my notes and then we can do clarification?
Sure.
And I'm just going to do them and rephrase this for expediency. So it's no cap on the time for public comments on Sunday, cap on weekdays.
Just so it's clear, I basically rejected a cap. We'll go as long as we go, but people have to sign up. We will only accept, we only hear public comment from those who have signed up by, and then Commissioner Wong's proposal is 9 p.m.
But I think the clarification was that for Sunday, there's no cap.
Yeah, there's no, this doesn't apply to Sunday.
Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So these were the key components that I had in my notes.
Gayla, they have to sign up by 9 o'clock. That was Commissioner Wong's.
That's the
motion.
amendment.
That's what we're voting on.
Right. So no restrictions on public comment for Sunday.
Right.
And also everything that's under the public comment management, the 3 bullets were also included.
So the points that were here.
Yes.
Can you all see this okay?
Yes.
I think the motion was that the public comments close at 9, not 8.
Right. Commissioner Wong's was 9 p.m.
Okay. So we're doing, everything's the same with Commissioner Wong's except for the time, correct?
Correct. Although I have to say, I don't like the second bullet saying cap on weekdays, because that's not exactly what we're doing, right? It's just that with regards to the weekday public hearings,
The meetings would start at 6:30. You would need to sign up by 9 p.m. to make public oral comments, and the commission would stay until all public comments were received. Is that correct?
that is correct.
This, I think you probably should add that it's, this is for virtual meetings only.
Right. So on the weekdays, well, oh, okay.
I see two hands, Commissioner Holtzman and Commissioner Stetcher.
Thank you. My friendly amendment said have breaks at least every 1 hour, 45 minutes. And the breaks last at least 10 minutes. Thank you.
Commissioner Stetcher?
My friendly amendment changes the word cap to
At least 10 minutes. Okay, enough.
So mine changes the word cap, which people might interpret to mean the amount of time they can speak, to say no closing off of public comments. Because we still may cap them at 1 minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes.
Okay. Commissioner Wong, I assume that's all okay with you.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Co-Chair
Do we have it all right?
Co-Chair Williams, your hand is up.
Yes, I just want to be clear, once again, what we're voting on. For this motion is if we vote yes, we're voting for everything, including the 9 p.m. Sign up for public or oral public comments. If we vote no, then this would not pass, but the original motion would still be there where we sign up
voted
our
on.
oral comments by 8 p.m. Is that, we'd have to take 2 votes?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
And if I may, we still have the public comment, writing comments into the Q&A, which is not the point. They should be writing the comments into the written public form.
Right. And people have been warned, and they do so at their peril, but that's all we can do. Okay. Are we ready to vote? Commissioner Wong?
Right. Yes, I guess Commissioner Holtzman, I guess, had called the question. So, and just to be clear to everybody, the only difference between my motion and Co-Chair Maeda's is the time for which to leave the sign up period to make public comments. So I'm fine.
Right.
Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. I will now take roll call. Commissioner Brian Stetcher?
No.
Commissioner John Bento?
No.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams?
No.
Commissioner Dorina Wong?
Yes.
Commissioner Jean Franklin?
No.
Commissioner David Holtzman?
No.
Commissioner Mary Kenny?
No.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda?
No.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza?
No.
Commissioner Apolloni Morales?
No.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon?
No.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpinella Segura?
No.
Commissioner Haile Soto?
No.
Commissioner Saida Soto?
Yes.
Motion fails.
I would, Holly, am I able to call the question on my own motion?
Yes.
I'll call the question on my motion. Is there any need for further discussion? Okay.
Could you ask Gayla to change the text on the screen?
Oh, yes. Gayla to change 9 to 8. Thank you, Commissioner Stetcher. Okay, let's vote.
Okay. Again, please be prepared to unmute your mic. Respond when your name is called. Commissioner John Vento.
Yes.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
No.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Yes.
Commissioner Mary Kenny.
Yes.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Aye.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Aye.
Commissioner Apollonia Morales.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Yes.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura.
Yes.
Commissioner Hyla Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Saida Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everybody. Any other motions on this item? Okay, I think we all are going to have to be a little flexible in terms of how the maps as they come in, how they're going to be displayed and all that. We had a meeting earlier, Co-Chair Williams and I, and with Ty, trying to game out what it's going to look like if we do get a lot of maps, many of them modifications, et cetera. We think we have a general idea of how they should be displayed. We want as much transparency as possible and as little confusion as possible. But I don't think there's any point at this point in really trying to direct Ty to do certain things because we just don't know what's going to happen, how many maps are going to be, what they're going to look like. Okay, so
we have a hand from Commissioner Holtzman.
Yes, Commissioner Holtzman.
If I haven't missed the boat here, I don't know if you need a motion, but I'd like, I'll move that we invite the 4 map makers to make presentations on Sunday.
I think you can just direct us to do that.
I think so. Is there anybody who wants to speak in opposition to inviting the presenters to speak on Sunday? Okay, then Gayla, can you go ahead and
Commissioner Mendoza
ensure that happens? Oh yes, Commissioner Mendoza.
I'm not in opposition, but is there going to be a time allotment that we're going to provide to them?
What do you all think is reasonable for this? I was thinking maybe 5 minutes. Do you think that's?
I ask you to add some more discipline where it would be 5 minutes for them to present and maybe either 5 minutes for Q&A or 1 round robin of questions of the commission, just so it's fairly equal for each of the presenters.
That's actually a pretty good idea. You all feel that makes sense? So that's what I think. That's what I would propose, and if there's consensus, we'll just go with that. 5 minutes per presenter, 1 round of Q&A, and please don't abuse that, and let's try to keep it focused so we can get through public comments as well. But that'll be the first thing that will happen at the public hearing before we take public comment.
I believe Holly can also weigh in. I think we can actually, which this group has never done, have a time limit on how long a commissioner question might be.
Legally, that is allowed.
So you could do round robin and ask the commissioners to maybe limit their questions to no more than 1 minute or 2 minutes, because that could end up becoming a huge presentation as well.
True. Okay. Let's try that. We'll see how it goes. Impose some self-discipline as we move forward.
We could also put the timer on.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be helpful. Okay. Were there other items? What's next on the agenda? Yeah.
Why don't I just open up the screen to make sure we've covered what we wanted to cover.
Thank you.
And then I will go on to the executive report. So I believe everyone now is aware of the calendar, the 7 days notification, the ability on November 10th to do some tweaking to the maps actually first would be tweaking as part of public hearing number 1. So it would be good to reserve the last hour possible of that meeting to give direction to ArcBridge. So we could post those modifications by November 10th during the daytime. But Wednesday, November 10th in the evening, you could do more discussion about further modifications you would like, and we would post those by Friday. As we go into the other public hearings, it's going to be the same process where you should reserve time at the end of the public hearing to think about what modifications you might want to have made to the map so ArcBridge can work on those. You've agreed about length of meeting. I'm sorry, Co-Chair Williams.
You're
I
muted.
just wanted to ask that as you're going through this, you're adding some comments. Would you be able to capture those? Like you said, reserve an hour for providing comments to ArcBridge. You know, could you just add that to the information we have here?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Whoops, I went to make it small so I could add it. Why is this moving? Oh, here. So we're not going to, we already came up with a motion on this, but basically set aside at least one public hearing to discuss, is tweaks a scientific word?
Fine.
Okay. And I have to hit the return here. Just sort of going through the checklist, we'll wait to decide about whether or not to do hybrid meetings at all for any of the other meetings. I will invite the map makers. I will request that they be prepared for a 5-minute presentation and 1 round of questions from the commissioners. I'm sorry, Commissioner Soda, you have your hand up.
Yeah, apologize. It just occurs to me, can you confirm that during public hearings, we won't be taking care of regular meeting agenda items or items? I'm just trying to figure out. Go
The
ahead.
goal is not to have regular meetings. So we'll approve minutes on November 10th for tonight and the first public hearing. We may have to hold a special meeting at some point to take care of business, but right now we're trying to focus solely on the public hearings.
Okay, great, thank you.
And we may need to schedule a special meeting in between if you want more time to tweak maps. So you really have a chunk of time between November 17th and December 1 where that could happen, even recognizing that there is Thanksgiving then. So again, some of this we have to play by ear to see where you're at and what the public input is. Okay, so this one is the motion, which I'll put into the minutes. We will be turning off the audio, and we're going to encourage people to provide written comments and to really focus public comments on how to improve and obviously avoid unnecessary duplication. Although, as Commissioner Orpanella-Segura said, sometimes it's helpful to have that rhythm to know that we have a lot of people supporting a certain position. I will collect, based on suggested tweaks, those comments, and we'll also have those in the written form for you to look at. And Ty will continue to post and number each of the submissions. I think at the next public hearing, when you take that last hour to discuss input, you may want to look at what new maps have been submitted, and if you want to take a look at them, because that may be a good time for you to say, we want to elevate one of them to an option or add this particular modification. And it brings me to the next agenda item, which is the last item, which is the Executive Director's Report. Are there any other questions before I proceed? Co-chairs, are you okay if I proceed with this item?
Yes, I know we're violating Commissioner Holtzman's suggestion, but we're close to the end. Let's power through if we can.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. So you all received a letter, I believe, from the executive office that the Board of Supervisors had passed a commissioner vaccination requirement, and I am to fill out a form to indicate who is vaccinated, either one vaccination, two booster or not. The deadline they gave me was Friday. So this is a word of encouragement for those who have not provided this information to provide it to me.
We have a
I
couple
see
hands.
Commissioner Holtzman. And I see Commissioner Vento.
On that, I noticed you said that you were not given that directive directly. And I did want to point out that we're in a similar situation to the county sheriff's deputies. We're not in the Board of Supervisors direct line of command. So this may not apply to us. Not that I'm saying you shouldn't get vaccinated. The directive, as I read it, said it applied to the county workforce. We're not really part of the county workforce. We're part of the state workforce, if anything, because we're a local state agency. We're created by state law. So if you want to work to protect the commission's independence, I don't think we need to do this. But of course, if the county health officer says we have to do something, we have to do it. But the county board of supervisors, we're kind of supposed to be independent of them, and I think we're in a similar situation to the sheriffs.
So Holly should weigh in on this because she's also investigated this some more. The fact that we're virtual, it's also sort of a non-issue because it says when you go in person. Holly, do you want to elaborate further?
Right. We just received this request, and I don't know that whatever the county does with it will affect at all our commission whatsoever. But since you got the letter, if you wanted to share that information with Gayla, please do. And I'm not sure what more will come of it.
And I'm to destroy all emails with your vaccination information once I record it. So I'm just letting you know that was what I was requested to do. I wanted to let you know we have started launching the campaign. I know some of you were asking what are banner ads. So I'm just going to run through a number of them from the LA Times that are currently being posted. And you'll see there are different formats. There are half pages. There's a leaderboard which sort of streams across the screen as people go to that page. This is for a mobile phone. We have them in Spanish. So this is the same format in Spanish as well. And we're launching, as I had reported, a whole range of the different media outlets. We already have 2 radio interviews being set up for Co-Chair Williams next week. We will have Spanish interpreters for all the public hearings. I will once again say I have found it very curious. All year we have posted that to let us know if we need any interpreters for any of our meetings, and I've never had a single request. But to be safe, we're going to have Spanish interpreters for every public hearings. And that's it.
Gayla, I have
oh, that's
update.
right. Yes.
So I wanted to bring up just for the record as well. I made a slight mistake on option C on the hub for the Esri layer view. Mislabeled 2 or 3 of the districts, and so I just fixed that as well. But I just want to put that on the record that for option C, Esri layer view on the hub, it should be fixed now.
Okay. Anything else?
So on the last point, the Spanish interpreters, it's true that you haven't received requests. On the other hand, when we have clearly made available interpreters, people have come forward to take advantage of that. So I think it is good practice to have them available for our public hearings this month for sure.
I do too. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
If I'm not out of order, just to add to that, I think we might expect that those who the community members who showed up to the Spanish only public hearings would, we should expect that they'll come back sort of for this final round of reviews.
That'd be great.
I think that's very likely and welcome. Okay, anything else tonight for the good of the order? Then we are adjourned.
Chair, I have prepared some remarks for the good of the order.
Oh, you have? Okay, let's hear them if they're quick.
Okay, well, they're not quick. They run to 6 pages, but if you prefer, I could just read the first page and submit the whole document for inclusion with the minutes. Let's see, maybe I'll share my screen perhaps so that here we go. Everybody can read along. For the good of the order, Los Angeles County has so far failed us in a couple of ways that I think are important to recognize, so that all of us, including the public, understand limitations that we've been working under and can nevertheless be confident that we have been conducting a redistricting process with integrity and fairness. Public confidence in the commission depends on transparency about these matters, and I believe my statement here will improve the likelihood that we will reach a fair outcome and the public will have confidence that we have done our job well. The first way the county has failed us is by providing us with inappropriate staff. KH Consulting, in my view, is a firm that we, as the County of Los Angeles Citizens Redistricting Commission, could not ourselves hire as staff without violating the specific law pertaining to our commission. And quite recently, I worried that we ourselves might have been violating that law if the definition of retain there in that law includes the meaning to keep. But then again, we never affirmatively ratified KH's agreement with the county. Still, I think this commission should have heeded one of our first commenters, a member of the public who urged us to hire our own staff or executive director. In addition, KH's principal has performed in ways that strike me as unnecessarily self-promoting or as violating the intention and the spirit of independent redistricting. Another way the county has failed us is by not providing us and the public with the complete redistricting database and access to software for using it, as the Board of Supervisors is required by law to do. Related to that, the board has never provided reasonable funding for the commission itself, which is also required to do by law. So we have never had complete control of a budget of our own. Now, my remarks are detailed with supporting information in the next 5 pages. I'm more than happy to read them into the record now, or I know you wanted them to be quick. I could send this document to the clerk for inclusion in the minutes, and I would encourage everyone to read them.
Well, I definitely do not want you to read the entire document. And I seriously question the appropriateness of bringing it to us in this form at this time. I will note as well that you've created a letterhead, which is not our letterhead. And I think that's an inappropriate suggestion that this comes from the commission, which it does not. I don't want to spend any more time at this meeting discussing what may or may not be in this document. But if other commissioners feel to the contrary, please let me know.
Well, I will submit it then to the clerk for inclusion in the minutes, because I was recognized to present remarks for the good of the order. And this is the sort of thing that one discusses when presenting remarks for the good of the order.
I think that's quite debatable, but is there anybody else who wants to make a comment about this?
I want to make a comment.
Yeah, I was trying to find my my notes, but I thought this was out of order for where we were. It's not appropriate. If this is something that would like to be discussed with us, there's a more appropriate way to do this. And I just don't think it's appropriate for us to hear this and add this. We had opportunities to add things to the agenda. It was not added, and I just don't think this is the right place for that.
Actually, if you look at what for the good of the order means, this is exactly the right time for it. That's why I waited.
I'd like to make my comment. I'm so sorry to cut in, but my computer battery has 3% and I cannot locate my charger. I don't think this letter is appropriate. It's not the first time that the commissioner has called our independency into question. And frankly, that's very inappropriate because everything that we've done has been to be transparent. I don't agree with any of this. I think it's a disservice to what Gala has done. And it's a disservice to what our commission has done to remain independent. So I would ask that the Commissioner Holtzman refrain from bringing comments that put into question our independence and Gala's KH Consulting's independence as well.
Yeah, well, I will not refrain. I'm submitting these comments for inclusion in the minutes, and there you have it. You can respond to them at the next meeting. Thank you.
Commissioner Vento, then Commissioner Franklin.
I just wanted to say, Gala, I think you and your staff have been doing a wonderful job, and thank you for the time and effort that you guys have done.
Now, I am not necessarily criticizing the job that they've done, that she's done. Well, actually, I am in some ways. It's very self-centered and narcissistic, in my opinion. But that's not the point. The main point that I'm making here is that I think it violates the law. Well, it would violate the law if we hired her. She may have violated the law if she's certified that she met
Commissioner
those criteria.
Holtzman, we'll read your comments.
Thank you. That's all I ask. I will
Commissioner Franklin, then Commissioner Morales.
So you may read them.
Oh, thank you. I am trying to maintain my professionalism and not get an outburst of this, but this is so out of order. It's so out of order. And I too, even though Commissioner Holtzman is stating that he's not ridiculing our executive director and the staff, I take it as he is ridiculing. Also, I mean, all the hard work that everyone has done on this commission, being totally transparent, being just open in what we're doing, and wait at the end when we're about to adjourn. There were times that you could have added it to the, to our agenda. To me, it's so inappropriate.
Commissioner Morales.
And for the good of the order,
if I can,
Commissioner Holtzman, I think you've had plenty of time. Thank you.
Yeah, I am very deeply frustrated with the way Commissioner Holtzman has gone about this, and I would request or figure out a way to strike this from the record. This is completely out of line.
I don't think there is a way.
Commissioner Holtzman, thank you. Are there any other comments?
Commissioner
I don't
Wong?
think, yes.
Commissioner Wong, Commissioner Wong.
Yes, I agree that this is inappropriate to raise at this time, and that I would agree with Commissioner Morales that we do not include this as part of the minutes because we haven't really had time to absorb this. This is a little bit like throwing something at the end of a meeting that I upon an initial reading, I don't agree with, and I don't really want it to be part of the minutes. We haven't had a chance to respond to this. I think it's inappropriate to include it as part of the meeting at this time.
Commissioner Haile Soto.
I agree with commissioners, all the comments that have been made by the commissioners, including the comment by Commissioner Morales. I just find this inappropriate. For the good of the order, seems contrary if it's a prepared statement. So this is completely just out of order. It's just a prepared statement. Took time to type it in, so I just find it inappropriate at this time. Thank you.
So I would suggest, is there any more comments? I would suggest that
we have one more comment. We have Commissioner Stetcher.
Yes.
I'm not sure it's inappropriate. I don't think I agree with it. I think it's provocative, and that Commissioner Holtzman wanted it to be provocative. And it happened during the meeting, and I don't think striking it from the minutes would make it go away. It's better if we had the opportunity on our own to look at it and respond thoughtfully.
So I would suggest that everybody do take a look and consider appropriate responses at a forthcoming meeting, certainly not this Sunday. If there's anything else, I hesitate to say for the good of the order, but if there's any other comments, seeing none, we will stand adjourned at 9:30. Thank you, everybody.